Well, in modern complex societal systems, of course, each political unit is not self-contained and isolated or remote. It is actually integrated into a larger scheme and interacting with other complex societal systems. There is a tendency in the way we talk about modern complex societal systems to emphasize the modern state and the state system, to see the current global system as being comprised of anywhere from what we contend with 167 significant or substantial modern states, which have a total population of 500,000 or more. But if you include microstates, the population gets up around 200 or even more. So we can analyze each of these societal systems. They have varying levels of complexity and size. They exist in varying circumstances. They have varying levels of development. And all of these things help to differentiate them and make them unique and distinct units. But there are also these commonalities that allow us to compare them and to learn from the situation in one unit and project that onto another unit to help us better understand what to expect in those other units as they progress through the development of their societal system. Of course, being situated in this larger context means that there are even a greater array of complex influences and interactions that affect the political behavior of these societal systems. Prominent amongst these are interactions with other states, and this is seen in the model on the far right side, appropriately termed other states. But other states traditionally have been limited by the idea of sovereignty, in that states were only supposed to interact with state actors. But of course, as a function of complexity and modernity, other states are interacting not only with the state but also with non-state actors. They've expanded their levers of influence with especially adjacent states, but some states having the ability to project their influence can actually have influence on states that are quite distant. And we know that the United States, for example, being a very powerful nation, interacts with just about every state in the global system, whereas some states that are very small may interact only with neighboring states. So we have another layer of complexity, not only looking at the political unit itself, but how it interacts with other political units. And this happens at every level of analysis. But of course, in keeping with our emphasis on the state system as where we're at now, and what we have to contend with the emerging global system in the era of globalization, a greater intensification and complexity of interactions with other political and social and economic units outside the boundaries of a single societal system. Not only that, but we've seen in the course of the last 50 years an exponential increase in the number of non-governmental organizations and an increase in the size and the influence of these non-governmental organizations. For example, Amnesty International or Oxfam have developed a presence in multiple numbers of states, societal systems around the world. There are regional NGOs and transnational networks, TANs, of individuals or groups that share common interests And through the power of modern communication, electronic linkages, and communication networks, they're seeing more and more influence amongst non-governmental actors and non-governmental groups on similar social units within a given societal system. And of course, we're even seeing the institutionalization of these relationships into networks of non-governmental organization. So, for example, Amnesty International or Oxfam will not only have a central organizational unit established in one country, but will have country-specific offices, or the International Crisis Group, another example of a group that operates in multiple contexts, but still coordinates centrally. So this adds another layer of complexity to the influence structure of political behavior within any given societal system. So, in summary, I don't want to go into the complexities anymore. We need to deconstruct this into its pieces and how they relate to one another and how they contribute to outcomes at the aggregate level. So let's just summarize what we've gone through so far. This model was developed to illustrate the basic social components and influence networks that constitute a modern, complex societal system based on an assumption of universal suffrage, in which all people resident in a given political space have political access to the societal system. This, more than anything, is the definition of modernity from the political perspective. Universal suffrage has only been with us basically since the end of World War II. Women got the vote only beginning in the 20th century, and it's become a precept of political systems only in the modern, post-World War II global system. All countries are expected to provide universal suffrage. And this has very profound influences on political dynamics within the modern societal system. This model is representative of a level of complexity in which all modern societal systems must contend and all modern state or governance structures must be able to effectively manage. Not understanding the complexity contributes to poor governmental performance. And of course, poor governmental performance contributes to an increase in the reliance on coercive strategies of social organization and social order, and basically pushes out the potential of fully utilizing the more the superior, more economically efficacious associational strategies. The principle of universal suffrage implies that the system is nearly fully integrated, such that all members of the system, at least in theory, receive a net benefit in system membership and perceive a personal stake in maintaining the system. If not, then again we see the core of a problem, a disconnect within the normal functioning of a complex societal system. In a system that is not fully integrated, systemic complexity is not balanced and sustained by systemic resilience, and conflict management by state authorities is problematic due to disputes among constituent groups, particularly involving civil society groups. Civil society groups are basically the first line of articulating emerging problems or discontinuities or disconnects within the system and the complex network of associations and communication linkages within that system. Can't be overemphasized that civil society groups are extremely important to the functioning of complex societal systems, at least as important as the state sector, in that they mediate with the marginalized sector, and The essence of problems with complex societal systems really emanate first or most disruptively from the marginal sectors. And so this transference of knowledge by civil society groups and taking advantage of their linkages to state authorities is an extremely important component in the management of social conflict within societal systems. Alternative authority structures represent the interests of marginal sectors, and if their interests are not addressed by prevailing central authorities, of course, loyalties are transferred from the central state to the alternative authority structures, increasing their influence, increasing their power relative to the central authorities. And it's really this balance between the alternative authority structure and the prevailing central authority structure that really determines the disruptive potential of civil, well, not civil society, but civil society relationships that are mediated by civil society groups, and really determines the balance between what I've termed revolutionary potential. We're all familiar with the concept of revolutionary potential. Revolutionary potential specifically refers to the balance of political power and authority between alternative authority structures and the existing central authority structures. That a revolutionary challenge speaks specifically on the potential for that alternative structure to displace the existing central authority structure and to reform the nature of the societal system to meet the needs, the values, and the interests of the marginalized sectors. And this is the worst case scenario. Alternatively, in the modern complex societal system, civil society groups have formed, organized, networked, and integrated with the societal system to the point where if they can mediate between the marginal sectors and the governing sectors and convey the importance of emerging political issues or dissent, dissatisfaction amongst the marginalized sectors to the governing groups and have those conflicts managed, mediated, and resolved, then we have what I term democratization potential, in that civil society is the seat of democratic authority. It's popular sovereignty, and it not only contrasts with, but also supplements and complements state sovereignty in the modern system. And so for the state to communicate well with civil society groups, to accept the mediation of civil society groups in the resolution of conflicts with the marginalized sectors, really is the definition of management, conflict management within these societal systems. So, we have this contrast between revolutionary and democratization potential, that the modern state, wishing to ensure stability and continuity, needs to emphasize democratization potential and minimize revolutionary potential. If it ignores democratization potential, it increases revolutionary potential. If it increases revolutionary potential, it increases the likelihood of coercive strategies overcoming cooperative strategies, and increases the likelihood that the system is going to be disrupted by coercion and political instability and eventually by political violence. An intervening factor, of course, the civil society groups mediate between the marginal sector and the governing or state sectors in a developing scheme where the integration and communication linkages between civil society and state and governing authorities is not strong. Civil society acts as a third unit and really decides the future course of the development process, in that it can choose to side with the governing elites, or it can choose to side with the marginal sectors and the alternative authority structure. And this basically determines the balance between democratization potential and revolutionary potential. The problem with this trifurcation of social or political influence in societal systems is that revolutionary potential deconstructs state authority, and in doing so loses the ability to govern. And so revolutionary outcomes, although rare, almost invariably lapse into the worst kinds of political violence, mainly because the deconstruction of authority structures in the old regime, without the formation of stable and functional alternative structures, really increases exponentially the perceived need and utility of coercive strategies in reestablishing a social order that's been destroyed or deconstructed. So, if civil society benefits from the association with the state sector, the democratization potential is high. Rivalries and uncertainties within sectors can be exacerbated by external influences, making the system difficult to manage and increasing incentives for members and resources to exit. This is new to the development of societal system. The whole idea of external influences really adds an enormous amount of activity and complexity to the dynamics within societal systems, and it's something we haven't fully understood or mapped out so that we can contend with it. It's basically a free-for-all in the global system amongst units that are increasing the capacity to influence, increasing the connections with other societal systems, but not fully aware of what their influence are doing and what how they're affecting relationships within these societal systems and the development process itself. And so we have an even greater need to better understand the structures, common structures of societal systems, how they link together, and how they operate, and what problems that they are likely to face, and how these problems emerge, so that we can recognize them early on and learn better how to treat these things and resolve these differences, and again reestablish the efficacy and the value of cooperative strategies over the certainty or the perceived certainty of coercive strategies that invariably have a great social cost.